All right, let's get right into it. While everyone's been focused on the flashy rocket launches, one company had an absolutely record-breaking 2025, basically cementing itself as the backbone of the entire orbital economy. We're talking about MDA Space. And today, we're going to break down the numbers behind their insane growth, solve a little cash flow mystery, and look at their massive bet on the future.
First, let's just zoom out for a second to get the big picture. This new space economy? It's not some far-off dream. It's already a massive market. We're talking $626 billion right now. And it's not slowing down one bit. Projections show it could nearly triple to $1.8 trillion in about a decade. This is a fundamental shift in our global infrastructure.
But here is the absolute key to understanding all of this. The rockets, they're just the delivery trucks. The real, lasting value is in what we're actually building up there in orbit. You know, the communications networks, the servicing platforms, the data hubs, all the critical stuff that makes space actually useful. And that right there, that's MDA Space's home turf.
So let's get into the headline story. MDA's incredible performance. See, the company completely flipped the script. They went from building these one-off, custom projects to running a high-volume assembly line for space hardware. And let me tell you, this wasn't just some small adjustment. It was a total change to their business model. And the results? Well, they were staggering. Just look at these numbers. Revenue shot up from $773 million in 2024 to almost $1.2 billion in 2025. That is a 51% jump in a single year. I mean, in the aerospace industry, that kind of growth it's practically unheard of. It tells you everything you need to know about a company hitting a major turning point. So, where did all that new money come from? This chart lays it all out. And while robotics and geointelligence did really well, the absolute engine of this whole thing was satellite systems. It makes up over 2/3 of the business. And get this, that one division alone grew by a mind-blowing 85.5%, all thanks to these huge contracts for new satellite constellations. And this isn't just about numbers on a page. This is the real deal, the actual hardware that's driving all that growth. You're looking at the MDA AURORA Terra, which is a satellite-defined software that's at the very heart of their new production line. And on the right, the MDA SkyMaker, the commercial version of the legendary Canadarm. This is the stuff that is literally building our orbital economy. Now, the 2025 revenue is super impressive. But if you're an investor or an analyst, the real story, the thing you really want to see, is the company's backlog. You can think of it like a crystal ball into the company's future health. It's a powerful safety net to protect them from all the craziness in the market. For anyone not familiar with the term, backlog is super simple but incredibly powerful. It's basically the total dollar value of all the contracts the company has signed, but for work they haven't finished yet. It is guaranteed future revenue, already locked in.
And MBA's backlog? Well, it's absolutely massive. At the end of 2025, it was sitting at almost $2.9 billion. This isn't just a big flashy number. It gives them incredible visibility into their future earnings, and it's a huge signal of stability and really strong demand for what they do.
And we're not talking about a bunch of small, scattered projects here. This backlog is anchored by enormous, multi-billion-dollar programs. We're talking building entire constellations of satellites for giants like Globalstar and Telesat, and of course, building the next-generation Canadarm3 for the Lunar Gateway space station. These are the big leagues. So here's the best way to think about it. Having a backlog this big is like a car factory having its entire production line completely sold out for the next couple of years. It lets them plan for the long term, manage their supply chain, and it gives them a serious cushion against any economic downturns. Okay, so we've got record revenue, a massive backlog, everything looks perfect, right? But, and this is a big but, when you start digging into the cash flow, a weird paradox shows up. Profits are through the roof, but the actual cash the company has on hand has shrunk a lot. So let's figure out what's going on. First, the good news. Adjusted net income, which is a really great way to measure a company's core profit, was up an incredible 71%. So the business isn't just growing, it's getting way more profitable. Which leads us to the big question in all of this. If the company is making more profit than ever before, where in the world did all the cash go? It's the kind of question that might make an investor a little nervous, but the answer really shows you the true scale of what MDA is trying to do.
And here's the number, free cash flow, which is basically the cash left over after you pay for everything. It dropped by a staggering 73%. Now, I get it. A number like that without any context looks pretty alarming. But here, the context is absolutely everything.
See, the cash didn't just disappear. It was very deliberately and strategically plowed right back into the business. They were playing the long game, spending on 3 key things: buying a company called SatixFy to bring critical chip design in-house, scaling up their production with a huge new factory in Montreal, and pouring money into R&D for the next generation of their satellites and robots.
This slide just perfectly sums up the strategy. This is what nearly $300 million in capital expenditure actually buys you. MDA is spending today's cash not on short-term stuff like paying out dividends, but on building the industrial muscle to dominate the market for the next decade.
So what's the big takeaway here? This is the story of a company transforming itself right before our eyes. MDA Space is making a very calculated gamble. They're evolving from being just a trusted partner on special projects to becoming a full-blown industrial powerhouse that wants to own a huge piece of the orbital supply chain.
You know, the company's CEO, Mike Greenley, he put it perfectly with this quote. It's not about just being a player in the space economy. It's about actively building the foundational pieces that are going to define it for generations. It's a bold, long-term vision.
This deep dive was based on analysis from our friends at HDIN Research. The key takeaway is pretty clear. While the headline growth is impressive, the real story is MDA's aggressive bet on its own future. The question isn't if the orbital economy will be built anymore, but who's going to own the factory floor. And MDA is betting nearly $3 billion that it's going to be them.